all, and welcome to this week's episode of the BKTY podcast. I'm your host, Hallie Wright, and I'm with my co-host, John Wen.
Hello.
And without further ado, let's get into today's topic. So today is going to be an interesting topic because, I don't know, I'm really excited to talk about it. I don't know about John, but we're going to be talking about social media. It's something that we all interact with and we all have plenty of experience with. Unless you're older, maybe not. But I'm assuming that mostly the people that are watching this are probably are around our age or somewhere in between. Especially if you are in the Gen Z generation, you definitely have lived a lot of your life experienced social media. And I think just whether we like it or not, it's going to affect our mental health. And it's going to have some serious long-term impacts on our mental health. And most of the time, we don't even realize it. So I think I'm going to start us off with our first question of the day, which is, in what way has social media transformed our generation, especially in respect to relationships, how we perceive ourselves, and overall, just its overwhelming presence in our lives? So, John, what do you think?
So that's a very tall question with a lot of layers
Yeah,
to
it's
it.
big. We're starting out strong.
So I like it. I appreciate it. I support it. So I want to say probably the first thing that comes to mind is probably beauty standards. They're
Ugh.
very clear that it's been an issue that's sort of surrounded social media for a long time coming, and it's this sort of Ah, it frustrates me a bit because you have people who look every single day onto their, every single morning they pull up their Instagram feeds on their Snapchat and they're looking at these pictures of, you know, really really edited and really just like good angles, good lighting, filters and all that of these very attractive people. And it more often than not, if you're ever insecure just a little bit, even just a little bit about your appearance, and that's okay. If you're ever insecure about your appearance, you're only going to feel more insecure when you look at these constant feed of basically perfect human beings
Yeah.
in terms of appearance because they put in a lot of work to make themselves look good in a picture. And the problem is that it's just a lot of people are just really comparative, and it's a really common sort of mindset nowadays where you sort of kind of oh, what am I to what are you? And with the rise of social media and the other people's lives being so put forth in your face, there's just it's really easy to kind of look at these really perfect looking people and saying, wow, I look like crap. And
Yeah.
it's something I really don't like because here especially, and I know Hallie is definitely a big proponent of it. We support body acceptance. You should be okay with how you look and how you are just because you're great, and you don't need to be up to these ludicrously high beauty standards that
Yeah.
sometimes really popular people on social media put out. There are people whose whole shtick is just making really nice pictures on Instagram of themselves. And you know
Yeah.
what? They're really good at it, and I totally applaud them for it. But
I mean,
for the average
yeah.
person, it's just that they shouldn't be your goal. You should it's okay to appreciate how good they look, but make sure it doesn't encroach in the territory where you're just oh, I'm terrible because they look great and I don't look like that.
Yeah, I feel like that's an area that's just hard because in one way, I think when we all started out on social media, I don't think it was any of our intentions to get so wrapped up in those beauty standards that, I mean, they inherently exist. There's no way you can scroll on social media and not see a photo that, you're just like, oh shit, I don't have that body. And this is, you know, pretty obvious looking at this photo. It's I don't know if I could ever, you're just kind of looking at it and get a little discouraged. But I mean, I feel like when we all started out, maybe it wasn't intended that way, but inherently, just in the way that posting pictures of yourself is, it's kind of transformed to either consciously or subconsciously affect our self confidence and our sense of self and beauty standards and everything in between. So I really like that point you brought up. And I don't know, that's like a hard one to tackle because it's like, how do you solve that? Like what
It
can you do to help it?
it's
And
definitely a
I don't
future
know.
this likely a future episode topic because we do want to devote a whole like 40 to 50 minutes on body acceptance because I think it's really important
Yeah, it
branch
really
of
is.
mental health. But sort of my way of going about it was just like when people excel, don't use it as an excuse to sort of dig at yourself. And
Yeah.
it's really common, if someone does really well in something, people tend to feel bad because they're just like, I'm not as good as them. But I think
Yeah.
it's a really bad mindset to have because you're constantly using other people's success as an avenue to sort of downplay your own successes when you should just be proud of yourself for the success that you do have, you know?
Yeah, or even to extend beyond that, like, be proud of other people for the successes they have. That doesn't make your successes any less successful, or any less or have any less value, like you still have value in your successes and your different various unique attributes. But just because they have something you don't, you could be like, oh, good for you. I love your Ferrari. It is wonderful. But, I also love okay, this is just sounding depressing, but like, I was gonna say I also love like my Honda Civic, but it's like, it's just different. Like, I think a lot of it is just like changing the way that we like actively look on it and changing the way that we perceive it. So instead of like having an attitude like, damn, I wish I had that Ferrari, it could be like, wow, good for them, but also good for me. And like that's hard because I feel like that's really the extreme of the situation. But even just like looking at, just say like, even if you're like on LinkedIn, okay, you don't think of this as social media, but damn, if you scroll on LinkedIn and see what all of your colleagues are doing professionally, it can really start to get you down. And so you say, hey, good for her for getting that internship, but that doesn't make my successes, that doesn't make my value or worth go down in any manner. It's simply like there's enough room in the world for both of us to have success and both of us to have space for that success. It's not like success is going to run out if more people have it. And it's not like this competitive thing. Um, so I guess see, that's
Yeah,
tough
I
because that's like
agree.
a mind shift, a mind change, like an attitude in your own mindset. But ultimately, if you can adopt that mindset, it really allows you to like think beyond your situation in that aspect.
That's a really good point. LinkedIn is also a really nice example because it shows that the issue it isn't limited to just body image. A lot of
Yeah.
times, lifestyle and success is a big thing. Like you follow these people on social media, whether it be like YouTube vlogs or like Twitter or Instagram, and instead of just them posting pictures of themselves, they just post pictures of their life. And
Yeah.
you have this serious like sort of aspect of sometimes it's like FOMO, fear of missing out and things like that, where
Yeah.
people now with social media, people just post their highlights. Like it's like the best parts of their lives at all times. So
Yeah.
when you kind of go and follow someone on social media, a warning is just like don't believe that that is their day to day because
Yeah.
more often than not, it's not. I mean, some people are obviously very rich; they live very lavish lifestyles, and
Yeah. It might be their day to day.
maybe it is. But more often than not, people post their highlights on social media. It's their best moments all the time. And when you're looking at someone's best moments all the time, it is really easy to feel bad about yourself. But
Yeah.
honestly, just like they just some days they're just chilling, like in their house watching a TV show or something.
Yeah.
Their life isn't all high octane, and your life doesn't have to be always interesting or amazing. Like
Yeah.
just
And that's,
be happy
yeah.
with the life in the way you live your lifestyle.
Yeah, because I feel like the human experience, like, it's not all highs all the time. I mean, naturally, like, we have emotions for a reason. We're happy sometimes, and we're also very sad other times. Like, life is a natural cycle. It can't just be all peaks. You have troughs and you have everything in between. So, I mean, I think part of that is remembering that aspect of social media. But I really want to tie it back into the question of like, how has that impacted our generation? Like, I definitely agree with what John's saying. Like, I feel like inherently, whether we want to recognize it or not, has breeded this constant comparison between us and just constant feeling like we're not enough or that we don't have enough, material wise or materialistically, I guess, if that's a word. And I feel like it's hard because in a sense that really gets you down. And it's like hard because I don't want to understate it because I feel like, when it's every day, it seems so normal, but really like being exposed to all that and constantly comparing yourself just repetitively, like from the moment you wake up and check your phone in the morning, which I mean, people can say they don't do that, but I do that. And like, I'm sure as hell guilty of it. Like, I probably shouldn't be checking my phone the first thing in the morning, but fuck it, it happens. Okay. And you're constantly just exposed the second you wake up to that constant comparison. And I believe, that's one of the reasons why they say that like young people nowadays have just like terrible mental health. Like what is the statistic? I feel like they've thrown it around it in all of our schools, online and social media about how, you know, young people on social media are more likely to get anxiety or depression. I don't want to be butchering the statistic because of course I don't have it right in front of me.
I
But
know the statistical rates are very high.
yeah, it's very
Yeah.
high with young people. I don't know the exact number, but um, and so obviously that's like something we have to address here, considering, we're all about mental health and like self-help and advocacy um in that way. So
I
yeah.
also I also want to sort of add on that in terms of changing our generation is that I realize our generation is a lot more public now. Sort of
Yeah.
everything you do kind of doesn't really have this sort of private feel to it anymore. When people go out to eat, when people go hang out, when people have a nice night out or go to a nice place, often it's accompanied by a picture and a post on a social media. And it becomes a bit, I think it's detrimental sort of to your health sometimes when sort of your life may revolve, like I definitely know some people whose lives revolve around social media. They go to
Yeah.
specific places to eat just because the food looks nice, not because the food is nice. And
Yeah.
it's this sort of aspect that may start to integrate people's identity with social media, and I don't think that's ever really a good idea because you get your good feelings about who you are just from how good your social media looks. You care more about how people perceive you than who you are, and you shouldn't need, and like you don't need the sort of good approval of other people or lots of likes or followers or whatever metric you're chasing. You don't need any of that to feel good about yourself. Like you are already a good person on your own, and you don't need fancy Instagram pictures to make people like you better because you're great. So
Yeah.
it's a really bad trend that I'm noticing. There are people I go out with, and they take pictures of their food every single time we sit down, and I always
Food
get them for it.
porn.
I always get 'em I always get them for it. I'm just like, "Have you ever tried not doing that?" And they're just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
but I got to for the gram." And I was just like, "Ah."
Yeah. Like, I definitely get that. Like, for me, I'm kinda like, "Okay, I've been guilty of that." Like, I can be the first one to raise my hand and be like, "Alright, sometimes food porn's just too good. Sometimes you just gotta do it for the gram." But at the same time, like, I definitely notice like, I can definitely understand what you're saying because it feels like nowadays, like, every time you're experiencing something, it's almost like you can't fully experience it because, like you're checking your phone or you're trying to post a photo of it. And it's like when people go to concerts, not to be a hater, but also it's like, that someone isn't going to scroll through your whole concert Snapchat story. Okay.
Oh, we're
So
firing shots now.
no, I wasn't trying to, but I guess I accidentally just did. Because here's the thing, I'm fucking guilty of it. Oh my gosh, I saw the Wallows in concert. They're like one of my favorite band, and of course I had to show it off because I'd been waiting for that moment for so long that I was like, yes, finally it's here. I'm gonna do it for the gram. I'm gonna do it for Snapchat. But ultimately, like when you're just like sitting there looking at your phone recording it, Like, you're not actually looking at the band, like, but I feel like that's, like, representative of experiencing life nowadays. It's like a lot of the times we're experiencing through a lens of, what other people are going to perceive. Like, we, subconsciously even think about, ooh, do we think that this is going to look good to other people? Or we feel like if no one knows we did it, like, isn't that a joke? Like, if you didn't take a photo of it, did it really happen? Which I know is kind of the extreme, but in a sense, it's kind of true. I mean, if no one's there to validate your feelings and validate your experiences, are they really true to you? I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
and
kind
that's
of like
why
an
we say
interesting.
you just kind of got to enjoy it for what it is. Like, it's
Yeah.
okay to have nice private moments to yourself and just be happy, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I suggest every person at some point, like, go to a park or go see a sunset on the beach or something, and just like don't post it anywhere. Just enjoy it.
Yeah. Just enjoy
Just
it.
turn your phone off and just sit and enjoy it, and enjoy the just sort of the incredible beauty of nature without having to worry about getting a good angle or catching it at the right time. Like,
Yeah.
I think social media adds a lot of stress. The stress to sort of look good or make like really attractive pictures. And I think it would help a lot to a lot of people if they just reduce that stress by sort of taking the pressure off themselves to have a really good social media page.
Yeah. Like, I totally agree. I mean, for me, like, I know I already struggle with anxiety, but I could definitely see how, the statistics show that people, like young people, especially like millennials on social media, experience more anxiety because sometimes I feel like I've gotten so much instant satisfaction from social media. You like get instant likes, you get instant comments, and you can constantly scroll. If you're not satisfied with one thing, scroll on to the next, and you can get satisfied in about 2 seconds. And I feel like with that, I've just noticed this within myself. When I'm trying to enjoy something, like just say I'm trying to enjoy what you just said, John, like a sunset, and just try to put my phone down, really soak it in. I almost feel like part of myself can't because I'm not getting that constant, instant satisfaction from experiencing that sunset, which you think would be absolutely bonkers. But in a way, social media has almost retrained our brains. In fact, I would probably put money on it that there's some kind of study out there that shows this, that social media has like retrained our thought patterns and like our brains and getting instant
It's
satisfaction.
like it's
Because,
like a Pavlov thing.
yeah, exactly. That's really exactly what I'm trying to say. And I don't know, it's like, it's hard because now I'm trying to take a step back and it's hard to reconnect.
It feels so nice. I really appreciate the point you just made, because it feels really nice to have validation. And I
Yeah.
think that this is where sort of social media is like the most poisonous to a person. It's if you're ever unsure about yourself and you don't feel really secure in like being kind to yourself and really caring for yourself as a person and being really, well centered around your identity, then social media is sometimes the worst place you could be,
Yeah,
because it provides an avenue, that it provides a metric or some number for you to gauge how much people validate you. And you
literally.
post a nice picture, and every time you get a like, you feel good. It feels good to see those streams of likes from people that you know. And the problem is that it takes away from the direction that you should go, which is, if you do feel insecure about yourself, work towards learning how to accept yourself for who you are, and just being happy in that you don't need other people's validation to make you feel whole. Your own validation of yourself is all you need. But social
Yeah.
media says, no, you want validation from all these other people. And if you keep posting really nice pictures, you're just going to keep getting validation. And it's just a cycle. And that
Yeah.
cycle comes with stress. You're stressed about posting the next nice picture. If this picture doesn't get as many likes as those other pictures, why didn't it not get as much likes? You know? And
That's really true.
yeah. If there's a Black Mirror episode called Nosedive, which I is sort of on a similar vein. I would recommend, actually. Y- I know Black Mirror gets a rep for being like a scary show, but that episode is not scary. Uh, You're welcome
Is
for
that
that
the one
award.
about the ratings?
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
I think it's very
it's
topical. It's
good.
very topical about this. We are not sponsored by Black Mirror, but please sponsor us, Charlie Booker.
Oh, please, please sponsor us.
But
And yeah, like
the episode's spot on in sort of what we're talking about right now.
yeah, it's like really good to put it like big picture wise. I feel like it really captures that. And in a sense, like I just want a disclaimer. We're not trying to come for anyone's throats, okay? Like this is something that we are all guilty of because who doesn't want validation? It's literally like the most innate like human response. It's almost to a subconscious level. Like it's something we just to like an instinctual level we just crave and we want because it provides us safety and we know that we're in a safe environment, not to like go a little bit off tangent, but like when you think about like your natural fight or flight response, you're no wait, what is the fight? Okay, well that's not this isn't a good example of that, I guess. But like you want to basically feel like you're safe and validated. So you don't feel anxious and you don't want to run away. Like you want to feel like you're fit within society, right? But in a sense, it almost has the adverse effect. It causes you that anxiety thinking about those things that John mentioned. Um, and it really goes down to like a deeper level, I think. But when you
Yeah.
think about it, like, oh, wait, here, what were you going to say?
Oh no, no. I was just saying that that's actually a really good point because both me and Hallie are guilty of this.
Yeah,
Like
like
we
seriously.
like we're not here to say that we don't do it. We absolutely do it. And
Yeah,
it does not make you like a terrible person if you do it. We're just trying to shed some awareness on you may not notice that you're doing this, and
yeah,
we think it's really detrimental to mental health. Because I know I've taken social media breaks. I know absolutely Hallie has taken social media breaks. So
yeah,
maybe in the future it's time to take a social media break.
yeah, true. And I also do want to say that, like, just as like a final thought to like this point that we're talking about, is like, you have to remember that social media, it's a business, it's an app, and it's literally designed to make you addicted to it so that you keep using it, you keep using their business, so that more sponsors and more advertisers will go onto that business platform and promote advertisements to you. Like that is the whole point of social media. It is designed to be addictive. And so it can be really hard when you feel like you're sucked into that like constant world of comparison and instant gratification that sometimes it can feel really hard to get out of. Which kind of leads me to our next question, which is how do you feel that social media has affected your negative or affected your mental health? I was jumping to the conclusion with the question, but how do you feel like it's affected your mental health? Just
Uh,
in your instance.
Okay, so I definitely have a lot of personal examples I could draw on, but I'm not really that social media savvy. And actually, if you talk to pretty much anyone I know, my social media is actually like extremely dry at this point because I rarely post.
Yeah.
But before, back in the day, I had a lot of confidence issues, back in the day because I just really wasn't a confident person until now. I'm talking like high school stuff, but I really wasn't confident in who I was as a person, like at any point. But it felt really nice to post a picture in it to get a good amount of likes. It felt good to have like other people like my stuff because in real life people didn't really do that. Like I had friends that I talked to and I hung out with, but rarely did people come and like applaud me for something because I was a really quiet person. I was pretty reserved. And so when people came around and they were like applauding me for things and stuff like that, especially in high school, I was in the international baccalaureate program, and like people in there are crazy smart. And so I
Yeah.
was known like all my life up until high school that I was this really smart kid, and then I got into IB, and then I would realize that I wasn't a smart kid anymore because everyone else was like 10 times smarter than me.
Yeah.
So it did a real knock to to my confidence. And because I didn't have any special cool talents and things like that. Now at the time I didn't realize that depression played a very huge part in me not having like interest, but I didn't know it at the time. So I just felt like, wow, you know, this social media thing's great. because I would post if I post like a nice picture or a joke or like a meme or something, and people liked it, it just felt good because it wasn't a validation I couldn't get in anywhere else in my life,
Yeah.
and it just felt really nice. And I was very luckily I didn't turn into like a huge spiral of things, mainly because I just kind of forgot that social media existed sometimes. And there was a certain point when obviously I began my recovery process, and I learned that I didn't need social media, and the reason I don't use it as often, I don't like post as often as I did before, was that I realized that it didn't really have a point to me. If something really, really interesting happened, like really interesting, that would be out of the normal, then I'd post something about it. Yeah. But if I go eat, or if I hang out, or if I go, look at a sunset or go to a very nice park, I just learned that I would much prefer to enjoy the moment than to photograph the moment.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
yeah, that's sort of how I went. I think social media does give you a lot of confidence, but not always the best kind of confidence. And I
It's
could
like
definitely,
false
yeah,
confidence.
I could definitely see how people like me who had confidence issues and identity issues, things like that, in the younger years might get snapped up in that. And I mean, everyone has a phone now, like even like really young kids. So this is, I feel like it's a problem that's steadily getting worse because it's like reaching towards younger and younger kids who still haven't really found themselves yet.
Yeah. No, I really love what you said because I mean, like, I couldn't even find the words to sum that up the way you did until I heard what you just said. But it's really like I feel like one of the reasons why social media is so detrimental to our mental health is because it's introduced at such a young age. Like going through high school, like for me, really similarly to John, like, well, of course, like with our own different experiences, but for me, like we were both in the same program in high school. And I just remember I never felt like I was enough for that. Like, of course, I felt like I was smart in a sense. Like, I definitely knew that I was smart. I knew I was intelligent and capable. But when I saw all these other people around me achieving such big things, it was just a huge knock to my confidence. Um, and I honestly felt like I was just stupid compared to them, which is really dumb. But for some reason, like I just thought that I was dumb, and I thought that other people thought I was dumb. And for me, social media was just a place where I wasn't in the collective group with my academic peers. I was in like a new territory with like a new community just online. And so I could almost start over and like make my own. It's exactly what you said. It's like exactly what John said. Like you make your own highlights, you make your own highlight reel so that you can appear a certain way. And so instead of thinking in my head that people thought I was stupid, um, because like I didn't spend all my time studying, not to throw shots or anything, but like, you know, um, I could craft my own identity on social media and put out that perception that I wanted people to see from me. Um, Instead of just like feeling valid in my own skin and not needing others to validate my own feelings, and my own, I don't know, everything about me and my own personality and quirkiness and weirdness. So I felt like that for me was the place that I jumped onto social media. Like similarly to John, I jumped onto social media because it was almost a place to where I could get that confidence boost from people liking my photos and seeing me do cool things, and hanging out with cool people or whatever. Um, but at the end of the day, I just realized that it didn't make me feel any better. You know, I still felt like I was dumb. I still felt that like I didn't compare to my peers. And I realized in a sense like social media is just like a band-aid, a superficial fix onto the inner problems, which is like insecurity and deep rooted just restlessness, which I'm sure like John can attest to. And also, of course, like John said, mental health issues. Like I was struggling with my own anxieties, as you can probably tell from those feelings that I was experiencing. Um, and I just think it's like really just to hone in on it all. Like it's very dangerous for young people to be exposed to such validation, but like false validation, which it doesn't come from your inner self, it comes from the outside world. Um, and from such a young age, when you haven't even found yourself and you haven't even figured out your likes and your dislikes and what you want to do with your life and who you want to be and your values, it can be really confusing to go online and see all these great things, see celebrities and, people driving around in their Ferraris and on their private planes, or people just achieving really great things. And in your gut, you think to yourself, I want that. But at the same time, it's not really thinking, do I do I really want that? Do I want those values? Do I want constant worry about what my appearance looks like and my body image? And so that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I agree, like, just about with everything you said, and
Yeah.
I think this it's really important because if you notice in both me and Hallie's experiences, we had these periods of time where we were very comparative with the people around us. So
Yeah.
imagine when you're in social media and you have the entire like world around you. You
Yeah.
have access to everyone's page, and that feeling of comparativeness, like, pretty much exacerbates by a very large amount when you have access to literally like famous and successful people that you just sort of see every day doing all sorts of things that may make you feel worse about yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think like when we were first exposed to social media, like in middle school and then in high school, it wasn't at its full capacity. It's really at now. Like maybe when we used it, it was more so to look at like what our friends were doing. But nowadays it has such a global impact. I mean, you really see all the protests, form of protests in social media, all the awareness about Black Lives Matter. I mean, like you see that you can interact with people across the world and gain their opinions and their views and their like their life perspective in an entirely different country in the other side of the world. And I feel like when we were on social media, um like in our younger years, I'm acting like I'm like 30 something now, like like this is only a few years ago, but social media has really grown exponentially since then. It's really just become a global phenomenon and like a global, you know, connected universe, which is like, in some senses, it's really amazing that, like, we can talk about Black Lives Matter and we can really promote our ideas and we can promote activism and fight for change using a global megaphone to really shout at the people at the top and say, hey, listen to us. But at the same time, we're also faced with all the challenges and dangers of social media that come along with body dysmorphia, comparison, feeling insecure, and ultimately feeling more anxious and having a declining mental health, especially with millennials and Gen Z, and similar ages. Um, so, I really want us to kind of transition. Social media isn't going anywhere. Obviously, this is something that the future generations are now going to have to grow up with this all their lives, not even just in middle school and high school, but starting from a really young age, they're going to get that exposure. And so, how can we become more conscious social media users in order to help, or, some of it's going to be inevitable, but helping limit that kind of exposure and comparison that we maybe once experienced?
So, okay, this may sound bad, but social media, I feel, is a symptom of a bigger issue.
Yeah.
It's sort of something that exists in our lives that sort of pulls forward maybe some of the resident feelings that you may be feeling on the inside. If you're not confident, if you have a low self-esteem and you find yourself constantly being put down by seeing all these other people on social media posting about their great lives or whatnot, social media isn't the cause of your bad feelings. It's just making them worse. And I think to sort of be like a really like healthy person and to use social media, sometimes you have to take a break. You need to
Yeah.
disconnect yourself from how integrated your life may be for social media. Both me and Hallie mentioned that we literally open our social media when we wake up. Like,
Yeah.
and that doesn't sound good. That does not sound good at all.
Addiction
And
is real, even
yeah,
if it doesn't seem like a real addiction, quote unquote, because it's not like you're addicted to drugs or alcohol. Like, it doesn't seem like it has that negative detriment to you. Like, social media is fucking addicting, as I said before. They
Yes, it
designed
is.
it to be addicting. So, anyways, continue.
Yeah. So, like, if you notice that you're on social media almost for like a good portion of your day, whether it be browsing other people's posts or posting your own things, I would really suggest. I've done it myself many times, including well, not right now because right now it's very important to sort of have social media open because a lot of very important issues are being brought to light, and I applaud people for that. But sometimes people really need to just take a break. You need to like realize, okay, I'm on social media for maybe, I don't know, like 6 to 7 hours per day total, maybe. I need to get off of it. I need to do
Yeah.
something else because getting stuck in that loop of just browsing other people's posts it doesn't get you anywhere, and it does make you continually feel worse if you feel like you have these exposed parts of your personality that are being like, worsened sort of by the constant, flow of other people's, information and posts and things like that.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to suggest also just like also kind of change maybe who you follow.
Yeah.
Stop following all these like super successful people that, live their entire lives lavishly because they own a crazy amount of money. Maybe just, follow the friends that like really well and really personally, and just sort of, comment on the pictures like jokes and stuff, and have good social media interactions that social media allows, because you don't have to live next to your friends, you don't have to be on the same continent as your friends, but you can still communicate and keep in contact. And I think that's a really great piece of social media, and maybe focus more on that piece than, following all these famous celebrities or like these people who literally do Instagram for a job, you know, like as
Yeah.
cool as their posts look, it may be not so great for your mental health because you're just constantly drawn into this, like cycle of comparativeness.
Yeah. No, I literally totally agree. Like, I think in order to have social media be something sustainable and like have something that all of us can deal with and like grasp and understand, it's like you have to, one, totally agree, limit your time. And actually, I want to add to that, like, if you have an iPhone, you can check in your settings how much time you're using on each of your apps. And you can see, like, Instagram, I'm going on it like 5 hours a day. And if you're like, holy shit, I'm going on it 5 hours a day, that's insane, you can do something about it, and you can take a break. And I'm sure Android has it as well, or any other type of phone. Um, that allows you to like get apps. I'm sure it has that capability to kind of see what you're doing. And you can also get apps that allow you to time out for the day on social media. So you'll put a cap for yourself and say, hey, I only want to spend an hour and a half to 2 hours on social media all day. And once you reach that cap, it will notify you and tell you, hey, you reached your cap. Maybe take a break, maybe read a book. I don't know, do something more productive than social media. And they're great resources to help you along that, especially if you do notice you're kind of addicted to social media, which, I mean, there is a really great podcast I actually kind of want to mention. It's by Carrie Rad. It's her Soul Sugar podcast. And in one of her earlier episodes, she has a podcast episode. Sorry, I've been talking like for so long now because fun fact, I just filmed a solo episode before this that my mouth is like, when your words just get like so jumbled and confused. But
Yeah,
anyways, she
yeah,
has,
it happens.
you know what I mean. Oh my gosh. Okay, so anyways, Carrie Rad has a podcast, Soul Sugar Podcast, and she talks all about tech addiction. And it's one of her earlier episodes. I would totally check it out. And there's actually like, I don't know, some kind of person that does this for a living. I have no idea. I watched it so long ago, but it's just like jumping into my head. Sorry if that's not useful. But he basically talks about like the telltale signs of having a social media addiction and like what that really looks like in a modern day context. So I recommend all of you guys go check that out. Um, but yeah, just being like a more conscious consumer of social media. You literally have the power at your fingertips to control who you're following and what kind of messages you're seeing. So if you're only getting messages that are reaffirming the ideas in your head that you're not good enough, or you don't have a good body, or you don't look good enough, or you don't look like the quote unquote standard image of beauty. Um, and that's just, along the lines of body dysmorphia in general. Unfollow those accounts. You don't need to see those messages. And actually, one of the really cool things that I've realized on Instagram is there's a whole community of actually really positive people out there that just want to spread good vibes, good messages. One of my favorites that I always post on the social media about BKTY podcast is Amy Lee. She is like a really great, just she talks about all things like mental health and like advocacy and just like good vibes. So surround yourself with some good vibes. It can be a positive platform if you would want it to be. And you have the control to control those messages and what you're receiving on a day to day scale.
Yeah, I really agree with it. And as sort of like a sort of like finalizing like bit to this episode, Hallie brings up that social media can be a positive place if you want it to be. And I wanna that we've harped on social media a lot, but it definitely has a lot of really good elements to it. And
Yeah.
that it connects people all around the globe that maybe would never meet each other without the sort of social media. And obviously, right now, social media is very important as it is kind of the battlefield of activism with the Black Lives Matter protests that are all around the world. And it's that social media that allows you to connect with other people who are fighting for the same cause that you are. And
Yeah.
both me and Hallie, we try and repost, and we have links to petitions in our bios because we want to do our small part in sort of this really big fight against a lot of systemic issues in the US. And I think that in this case, social media has shown itself that connecting with other people can provide a lot of good for the world.
It
So,
really
so
can.
social media isn't always a bad. It definitely does have a lot of bad elements, and that we spent a whole 40 minutes talking about that. But there's definitely some good parts to social media, and I encourage you to use social media not for these sort of like really aspects of trying to improve your image or things like that, but instead use social media for its best parts, which is connecting with people you may not have ever met before and keeping in touch with people that you've moved away from or they've had to go somewhere else for a job, a school opportunity, even the military or things like that. It's good to keep in contact with people, but also it's good to help you keep informed about the things that are going on. It's good to understand how situations are unfolding in places that you may not be, especially right now when the whole world is sort of holding hands in fighting this very, very in-ground issue that has been boiling for years and years, and now people are up and about it, and they're using social media in the best possible way, which is spreading awareness, making sure that everyone knows what's going on, how they can help, things like that. I'm really proud of a lot of people that I know that are using social media to the fullest extent to try
Hmm.
and work on this issue. And me and Hallie, we do our due diligence. We try to help our best, and I would encourage you to to help it as well. But obviously,
Yeah.
if you are going through a lot right now emotionally, whether it be because of the recent events or not, I do encourage a social media break even now, because these things are very hard to see. They're very hard to open your Instagram or your Twitter and sort of view these events and read these descriptions of things that are happening. So although we encourage a social media break for other reasons, this reason is just as good. If you feel your mental health is really deteriorating just because it's really hard to see all these really bad events, we encourage a social media break as well.
Yeah.
It's definitely something you should take a part in.
Yeah. And like you have to remember that like our our brains, we're not wired to see this kind of trauma happen every single day. It's a lot to take in and it's a lot to process. And it's okay if you need to take your time to process these things. You know, as much as we preach for advocacy and standing up for people that maybe are marginalized in our society or are often shut down and completely oppressed, of course we advocate for that and we advocate for you guys to stand up for people who need it. but at the same time, advocate for yourself and your own mental health. And sometimes reflecting and taking a break and thinking about current events is even better than just going down a Twitter rabbit hole, because then you can be recharged and ready to make action instead of drained and tired and wanting to avoid it. Um, and so I really like what John said, just take a break for your mental health. It's
Yeah,
essential.
that's a really great way to put it.
Yeah. And so, speaking of social media, you should follow us on social media. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at BKTY Podcast. We love posting, especially on our Instagram and our Twitter. We love posting like motivational, like kind of content. So hopefully, like we can help be one of the positive sources you guys might
Our
want to
Twitter is
see.
a little bare bones, so probably the Instagram is where you want to go for all that encouraging content.
Yeah, like, we're trying to keep it like a positive space for all of you guys. So, connect with us. And we hope that you guys use your Instagram for good because ultimately, like, you have the power to do so. Um, and you have the ability to like filter the kind of messages you want to see. So, with that, any final thoughts, John?
No, I think that's good.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode of the BKTY podcast. You can find all updates and information on our Twitter and our Instagram at BKTY Podcasts. To all of our listeners, have a wonderful day. And as always, don't forget to be kind to yourselves. And John, do we have any questions?
I don't believe we do.
Oh, damn. All right. Well, we're still in the beginning stages of the podcast. So, is there any questions you would like to ask each other?
Um, I don't know. I don't
I know I put you on the
really.
spot.
Yeah, you did a little bit, but
Okay.
let's see. How about? Hmm. Wait, actually, yeah. How early did you get a social media account? Like any social media account?
Oh, yeah. I actually remember I got mine in sixth grade and I got a Facebook and I made it in secret because I didn't want my mom and dad knowing because I thought that they would kick me off Facebook and tell me I was too young to get on it. So I did it in secret, but turns out they didn't care. And yeah, I just remember playing Farmville like every day.
Okay. So I actually had the same exact experience with you. I was also 11 and I also made an account in secret because someone told me that you had to be 13 to have a Facebook account. You get
Yeah, that was it.
yeah. And I did play Farmville, but I was nowhere near as good. My brother was apparently like obsessed with Farmville and
Oh,
he was
I
very,
loved
very
it.
good at it. Very good.
Like, honestly, like, that was my main priority for social media. Like, I was like, socializing is secondary, all right? It's Farmville in the Facebook games that are first.
The
Like,
when it,
that was my thing.
the first place I approached the sphere that we've been talking about for this episode was Instagram. I think Instagram was like the big leap because Facebook to me was
Yeah,
never turned into sort of what we were talking about for
yeah,
myself. But when Instagram got big, that's when everything sort of went in this.
I agree. Like, maybe it's just me, but I feel like Facebook's a little bit different. Like, in nature, I think it's just like, it's not as addicting in its content because, like, you have to like very actively like post and like comment on posts. It's not like you're just like double tapping really quick and then scrolling. So I feel like it just kind of has like a different feel to it in general. But I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, so I think that's really the only question I want to ask because honestly,
Yeah.
I think we've really covered quite a bit in this episode,
Yeah, I think so
and
too.
like I just want to say, to our viewers, like social media, it's pretty good, does a lot of good things, but too much of a good thing is a bad thing, and social media is
Yes.
not all a good thing. So
Yeah, definitely for
definitely,
sure.
definitely take it from both me and Hallie. Take a break.
Yeah, take a break.
If
And with
if you're browsing social media as you're listening to this episode, take a break.
yeah, get off. Yeah, that's like counterproductive here. Alrighty. Well, with that, I guess we'll see you guys next time.